Well, things had started out badly for both my investigations and Coach Shroom's season. If I was gonna get anywhere, I'd have to speak to some of the new blood in the Pokémon Premier League.
Hello?
Miss Nova, my name's Max Striker. I need to talk to you about a few things.
Hey, I heard of you. You're the detective, right?
In a manner of speaking, I'll cut right to the chase. There is some out-of-pocket shit going on in my city. I know you're new here, but that ain't an excuse if I find out you're in any way involved.
Whoa, hold up. What do you mean out of pocket? Am I in trouble or something?
That remains to be seen. Tell me what you know about the cults.
The Colts? I don't know what you're talking about, sir. I'm just here to battle and make a name for myself.
Make a name for yourself, huh? Funny. It's what a lot of cults start out promising to potential new recruits.
Wait, no, that's not what I meant.
Cut the crap, Nova. Look, a bunch of cults that were very active are suddenly nowhere to be seen. And here comes a new guy with a psychotic assassin on his team. What am I to make of that, huh?
Assassin, Mr. Striker? I have no idea what you're talking about.
So, you're not aware that your guy, the Cleaner, is a gun for hire with a list of victims as long as a Wailord?
He is? Look, I swear I had no idea about any of that. I was just given the team when I got here.
Who gave you the team, Nova?
A friend of mine. Look, I needed some help and a friend got the team for me, okay? I don't know anything about cults or assassins or any of this. I'm just here to battle.
So, you really don't know what's going on around here, do you?
Mr. Striker, I am just a participant. I was invited to take part. I don't know many people in this league. I was given a team to battle. That is literally all.
Alright. Well, who do you know? What can you tell me about this, GameDex guy?
Oh wait, yeah, I can help you. I do know him. He's a new guy, just like me. Doesn't do this a lot. Apparently he likes to battle in so-called doubles. I don't know if that helps or not.
Did you say doubles? Are you sure about that, Nova? You better not be lying to me.
I'm not, I promise. I mean, that's what I heard. Like, I know him, but I don't know him that well or anything.
Alright. That'll do. Now you listen close. You hear anything out of the ordinary, you call this number and you tell me. You got that?
Yeah, I got it.
Good. I'll be in touch. And a word to the wise, do background checks on your team members next time. A doubles battler, huh? This was starting to sound all too familiar. Hello everyone, Shroomraver here and welcome to PPL Season 4 Week 2. Yes indeed. Now, last week we got off to what I think is the worst start that we have ever had in our Draft League history. Big 4-0 loss to Gravy. We are looking to get back on track as quickly as possible. Not going to be easy as we go up against GameDex and the Golden State Weezings. Their links down in the description below along with everyone else. Make sure you check them out. Not someone I know personally, GameDex, not someone I know very well. As I understand it, they are more into the doubles and VGC side of things than singles, but we are not going to be taking them lightly at all. They've got a very nasty, threatening team that consists of Palafin, Landrostherian, Archaludon, Serperior, Grimmsnarl, Pelipper, Regieleki, Incineroar, Deoxys Defense, Phalanx, Weezing, and the mascot pick of Hisuian Zorua. Terra Captains are Arcanodon, Incineroar, and Phalanx. So we have a nasty looking Rain Core with some premier threats on the side of the likes of Serperior, Landorus, Terra Arcanodon could be nasty. We can't take Phalanx for granted either. There is a lot of stat lowering and initiative gaining, plenty of bulk, and just some nasty stuff going on there that is not going to be easy to break down. But we're going to get our best shot, and we are going to be starting off with our dedicated lead, Weakness Policy Great Tusk. Shout out to Gray for this set. It seems weird maybe to bring this to a potential rain matchup, but this is kind of an anti-rain weakness policy lead with Earthquake, Supercell Slam, Zen Headbutt, and Rapid Spin. The idea often with Palafin is you want to get that activated as quick as poss. With this HP and defense investment, 112 HP, 32 defense, we are never 2-hit KO'd by regular form Banded Palafin's Jet Punch or Flip Turn. Those do under half. And we have enough speed investment to outrun a Pelipper. Everything else is thrown into attack with an adamant nature. The idea being, if they want to lead off with the Palafin, we stay in with Great Tusk, we click Rapid Spin, they do under half to us, we activate Weakness Policy, and then we just try and nuke something coming in. Now, Earthquake is always going to be a move that we run on Great Tusk here. We have Supercell Slam for the likes of that Pelipper switch in, trying to get the rain up. And Zen Headbutt is the move of coverage move of choice I've gone for. I've opted to be able to hit the Weezing rather than the Landorus Therian, so we'll have to see if that plays out for us. But yeah, this is a breaking weakness policy lead that should be able to try and at least trade 1-for-1. Next up, we have Dedicated Sweeper. It is Terra Ground Haxorus. We have Lumberry and Mold Breaker on there. Mold Breaker allowing Earthquake to get around that Weezing, especially with Terra Ground. We have Dragon Claw, First Impression, and Swords Dance. First Impression, gonna be useful for hitting the likes of Palafin, Serperior, Regieleki, even the Grimmsnarl, Deoxys Defense, things like that. But if we can then get a Swords Dance up and try and break some stuff with this, then it can pave the way for other members of the team as well. And one of those members of the team that could be doing a lot of work is going to be the debut of Iron Crown. We have a Shuckerberry Iron Crown here. 200 speed Timid is allowing us to outrun the Landorus Therian, I believe. Everything else pretty much into special attack with some nominal HP. Tachyon Cutter, Focus Blast, Volt Switch, and Calm Mind. Realistically, we're looking to just try and trade 1-for-1 into that very threatening Landorus, or take some coverage ground moves from the likes of Incineroar, Arcanodon, maybe one of the Terra Captains going on there too. Tachyon Cutter, Focus Blast, and Volt Switch pretty much hits everything we need. Calm Mind, to say, is just there in case we get the opportunity. It's more of a luxury than anything else in this match. But we need something that's going to just hit super hard and can take advantage of rain, and that is going to be another debutant. It is going to be Choice Banded Azumarill. Yes, we are 224 Adamant, 88 speed allows us to creep the Weezing, I believe it is. Everything else is thrown into defense. This is looking to try and take hits from Palafin, Landorus, Incineroar, things like that. Phalanx too. We've got Player Off, Liquidation, Aquajet, and Superpower. Superpower really good for hitting the likes of Arcanodon on the switch in. Yeah, Azumarill is here to just hit super hard. I've got a lot of options to break with things that can try and clean up at the end, and one of those end potential cleanup mons is going to be Kilowattrel. We are heavy duty boots here. 164 speed allows us to outpace everything we need to. I think the only thing we're not outrunning is the Regieleki. We have Hurricane, Thunderbolt, Volt Switch, and Weather Ball, just in case the rain mode does come along. 220 special attack is enough. 124 into defense. We're quite heavily defense invested. It allows us to take a Jet Punch from Banded Palafin from full. Final member of the team is going to be a very physically defensive Sinistra here with a Citrus Berry. We have Machigotcha, Shadow Ball, Calm Mind, and Strength Sap. It's a fairly standard looking spread. We've got enough special attack to do a good amount of damage to a lot of things. We are modest nature, but we are mostly invested in HP and defense. yeah, Gotcha is going to be really useful into the likes of Palafin. It'll do nice neutral damage to Landorus, Pelipper. A lot of things that this thing can do a lot of damage to, whilst potentially trying to get Big Chip into the Superior if that comes, to then potentially be revenged by something further down the line. So that, yeah, is the team we are going with. Not going to be an easy one, but we desperately need a win here. So without further ado, let's get into the team matchup screen and see what GameDex has decided to bring against us. So, as you can see, GameDex has decided to bring Palafin, Incineroar, Terra Steel Phalanx, Regieleki, Landorus Therian, and Grimmsnarl. I should say that is also Terra Grass on the Incineroar. So no Rain Chorus here, there's no Pelipper, there's no Archaludon, and there's no Weezing, which is quite nice, but it does sort of nullify the kind of things that my Great Tusk was brought for. But it doesn't stop the fact that I am going to lead with it. I would imagine that they want to get that Palafin activated as quickly as possible. So, despite the fact that there's no Pelipper or Weezing, I am just going to lead with Great Tusk and see where we go from there. So, here we are, week 2 against GameDex and the Golden State Weezings. There they are on screen, similar attire to us. They're going to be leading off with that Palafin. Like I say, I'm going to be going with Great Tusk. Now, this is pretty much the lead that we anticipated, so I am just going to lock in Rapid Spin really fast, kind of hoping that they're just going to flip turn on out of there. That'll put us at +2 attack and +1 speed, and we should be able to do a good amount of damage to most anything that comes in here. Now, Taunt is something I was not expecting off rip. If we'd have gone for like Headlong Rush here, we would have done big damage, but as it is, we are going to go for the Rapid Spin and do a nice little solid chunk of damage to this Palafin. It does mean we don't get our weakness policy activated, which is a little bit of a shame. And here I am just going to go for the Earthquake, just in case they do want to stay in and try and flip turn. It seems unlikely, but it also seems very unlikely that they are banded, given they're packing lead Taunt. Scarf, maybe, you do see that sometimes, but Scarf Palafin is quite rare. So I'm rather anticipating that it's a different set. It certainly doesn't look to be choiced. The switch into Landorus is fairly obvious, but I am just going to go for the Earthquake anyway, on the off chance that they fancy their chances staying in and flip turning or going for a Jet Punch. Now, as it is, GameDex is having none of it. They are getting the heck on out of there with Palafin, so that's now activated when it comes back in, and it is going to be the Landorus that makes an appearance. Rather unfortunate that I'm not packing Ice Spinner. I covered for the wrong things and they didn't show, so that's a bit unfortunate. Earthquake, of course, going to do no damage. Now, there's very little I can do to this thing. I am at -1, and it seems very unlikely that they're going to be able to activate my weakness policy unless they're rocking out with Grass Knot. But even so, with +1, a Zen Headbutt's not going to be doing all that much. So, hedging my bets, I am going to make the play into my Sinister. It's very physically defensive. It should be able to take any hit this thing wants to go for. So, like I say, going to get out of there with Great Tusk. We don't get the weakness policy activated, but we do maintain full health later on for down the line, which is great. In is going to come Sinister, and that U-turn is going to do a very solid chunk of damage. This is looking to be an offensive Landorus Therian. It is looking to be an adamant Landorus Therian. So there's every chance that this thing is scarfed. And now GameDex is very free to go into the likes of the Incineroar, maybe even the Regieleki to try and get some more initiative going there. And as you'll see, it is going to be the Incineroar. Very fair play on their part. Going to get that Intimidate, which isn't going to do anything. Now, I cannot stay in here. I have no reason to whatsoever. So I'm going to make a switch. I'm going to get back out of there, and I don't want to go into Azumarill immediately. There could be a knockoff coming my way. And given that Great Tusk's utility is severely hampered by what GameDex has brought, or more accurately, what they haven't brought, Tusk is looking like it's going to be used more as a bulky pivot than anything else. So I'm going to get on out of there with Sinister, go into Great Tusk, and try and scout out what this Incineroar wants to do. So Sinister is recalled, as I say. I am just going to go back into my Great Tusk, which thankfully hasn't taken 50% from a banded flip turn, which is great. But it is going to be Parting Shot from the Incineroar, and early game, I am being suckered into a really unfavorable position where GameDex is able to use the very good natural initiative gaining that their team has to get the jump on me. And this is not a favorable position at all. I need to break out of this as soon as possible. It is the Landorus that comes in, and that's going to get an Intimidate once more. So this double Intimidate core is going on. It's interesting they brought that when I had Killer Wattrel, but I guess they predicted that I would want to be Volt Absorb on it for the likes of the Regieleki. So good brings on GameDex's part. Now at this point, I do want to just try and get damage onto this Landorus, scout out its set. I'm pretty sure it's adamant, I'm pretty sure it's defensive, but we'll take those hits fairly well. I'm just going to go for Zen Headbutt. It's the only move I have that can hit this Landorus. Again, if I had Ice Spinner, that would be so much the better. But they are just going to go for the U-turn. They see no reason to be staying in here, knowing that I'd be able to take any given hit they go for. And in comes the Grimmsnarl, a godlike play on GameDex's part as we go for Zen Headbutt and do absolutely no damage. Grimmsnarl is a bit of a problem. I am not at a very good amount of attack. I'm already at -1. This thing can potentially do nasty things to my team if it's offensive, or it can start doing screen shenanigans as Grimmsnarl is so wont to do. See, I'm actually at -2 attack, which is really bad. I think, just going to stay in here and go for an attack, just to try and gauge what sort of Grimmsnarl set we're working with. So Earthquake is going to come in, and that is going to do a respectable amount for being at -2, and in comes Dazzling Glee. Now we do take that hit, just about, and that's going to activate the weakness policy, which is really useful actually, because that means we're back at neutral attack, which is super nice. But at this point, realistically, Great Tusk is not doing a whole huge amount. It's outsped by most everything that my opponent has left, so I'm just going to stay in here and go for Earthquake. Reflect is going to be put up by the Grimmsnarl. That's going to nullify a lot of what I can do with Earthquake, unless that happens. We get a nasty crit, which is going to take the Grimmsnarl down by a very good amount. This is super useful. I don't want that thing to be able to have a lot of longevity. With it at as low amount of health as it's at, I am going to go for Rapid Spin here, just to try and get myself up to speed to get a hit off against whatever wants to come in. And as you'll see, that is going to be, of course, the Landorus Therian. So we are back at -1 from that Intimidate. We are just going to go for the Rapid Spin, and that's going to do very little at -1 through a Reflect. But as I say, I'm pretty much killed by anything now on my opponent's team. I'm just going to go for the Zen Headbutt, but as you'll see, the Landorus is going to be able to go for Earthquake and take us out. Now, this looks to be bad, we're 6-5 down, but we've got huge damage onto the Grimmsnarl, and now we know that this is Adamant Choice Scarfed Landorus Therian, which is super nice. We now know that it is locked in to Earthquake, which gives us a very free switch into Uni, the Killer Wattrel. So, in comes Killer Wattrel, and I know that this Landorus is Choice Scarfed. They have to switch out, they cannot touch us. I am Terra Flying, so even if I was to go Terra, we'd be immune to Earthquake. What this means is that they have to switch, so I'm very free to go for Volt Switch and try and turn the initiative game on its head a little bit. I'm behind in this game, and I need to sort of wrestle my way back into it. So I'm just going to go for a Volt Switch. They can't stay in, and presumably knowing that that's coming, they might well want to go here into that Regieleki or the Incineroar if it's like a very specially bulky one. As it is, GameDex is going to go for the former option. In comes Regieleki, and that Volt Switch is going to do a nice nominal amount of damage, and we can Volt Switch on out and try and get that initiative game back in our favour. Now, my ground type is gone, but I have 2 natural resistances to electric, one of which is my Sinistcha, but one is my Haxorus, and my Haxorus is Terra Ground. So, gonna go into Haxorus here. Like I say, I am Terra Ground. That should be enough to threaten out this Regieleki. However, in the back of my mind, like, that Landorus is still there, it's still a very good amount of health, and there is a Reflect up, so there is no sense in me trying to Swords Dance, because the Landorus will come in, get me down to +1 attack, and then outspeed and 2-hit KO me with Earthquake, whilst I won't be able to get any meaningful damage onto it in the meantime. that would be a waste of my Haxorus, so what I'm going to do, knowing that the switch is very likely coming, I'm just going to click Dragon Claw. There is nothing this thing can do to Oko me. If it wants to go for a Thunder Wave, I have a Lumberry, so I'm safe there. So I'm just going to go for Dragon Claw, and as we see, the Regieleki is going to get on out of dodge, and it is going to be the Landorus that comes back in as expected. So that's going to get the Intimidate onto my Haxorus, and we, as I say, are going to go for Dragon Claw. -1 through Reflect. It still does a nominal chunk, and this is just what we're doing. We're trying to wear this Landorus down as much as we can, but I do not want to stay in here with Haxorus. It is far too potentially valuable in the late game to be leaving in on this Landorus, just get 75% on it with Earthquake and take very little in response. So what I'm going to do is get on out of there and just go into my Sinistcha. So Haxorus, as I say, is called back, and we are going to go back into Sinistcha, who is still at a reasonable amount of health. But GameDex is back on their grind with the initiative gaining. It's going to be U-turn, and that doesn't quite put us in range of Citrus Berry, which is desperately unfortunate. This leaves Sinistcha pretty vulnerable to this guy, Incineroar. However, I now have to try and make a call. Do I want to predict the parting shot, which they've been just cycling through initiative, or do I want to be ballsy and stay in and just go for a strength sap to get myself back up, aware of the fact that that Defiant Phalanx is in the back? A mid-ground play for them would be to just go for the knockoff. They really don't fear my Sinistcha all that much with this Incineroar, and rightly so. I haven't shown Scald, and they might have expected me to go for it the last time we had this matchup. So it's a difficult 50-50 that I have to contend with here. The safest middle for me is to go into Azumarill, potentially having my Choice Band knocked off, which would be unfortunate, but it might be my best play to try and get myself back into this game. Now, in the end, I do decide to make the play into Azumarill, try and get that thing in now that I have an opportunity. As you'll see, the Incineroar is just going to go for knockoff. It's not going to do a massive amount of damage. It is going to get rid of our Choice Band, which is unfortunate. However, the crucial thing is I have my my Azumarill in. It may not be Choice Band anymore, but it's not been intimidated, which is nice. And looking at my opponent's team, there is not a whole huge amount that wants to take these hits. They're not going to switch in Landorus to get an Intimidate at the risk of taking a big hit from Liquidation. Outside of that, there is nothing that my opponent has that really wants to take a play rough. Now, GameDex thought about this one for a good bit, because even without a Choice Band, Azumarill is still dangerous. And what they're going to do here is opt to sack off the Grimmsnarl. This is fine for me. There is no chance now of those Prankster Streams going up in a pinch. So they're now gone once that Reflect wears off, which it does now. That's great. Azumarill is off the mark, but it is very much free real estate for the Regieleki to come in, which is a bit of a problem. I no longer have, as I say, my Great Tusk to act as a switch into this guy, and Azumarill, looking at my opponent's team, is looking mighty threatening. So I have no interest in staying in. My best middle ground play is to go into Sinistcha. They shouldn't be able to knock us out, even with like a Thunderbolt or something. It should put us into the range where we can take a hit, get our Citrus Berry, and look to take another one after that. And that's the play I'm going to make. Get out of there with Azumarill, who is far too valuable in this matchup to risk anything on. And I'm going to go into my Sinistcha as we see Thunder Cage that's going to miss. That's unfortunate, but realistically speaking, it wasn't going to do a huge amount of damage to me. But now I'm in with Sinistcha, and they really don't look like they want to be staying in here with Regieleki. It doesn't seem like a wise play for them to go for. Machagotcha is my sort of safest middle. If they want to try and get sneaky and go into the Phalanx, then that is arguably my better play than going for Strength Sap. So I'm going to make that play of Machagotcha. Regieleki gets out. Realistically, it's going to be the Incineroar, and as we'll see, that's what's going to come in. It is going to be that Incineroar gets the Intimidate, which of course doesn't matter. We're going to go for the Machagotcha. Now that's not going to do a whole huge amount. As you'll see, it does 10-15-ish% if that, and we get a nominal amount of health back, and we're going to see that the Incineroar is leftovers, looking like just a specially defensive leftovers build. And now is where I'm going to try and make a bit of a play. They surely know that I'm going to be switching out here, but Azumarill doesn't want to take too many hits, and I don't want Azumarill to come in on a parting shot into Regieleki to just wash, rinse and repeat. So predicting that parting shot, what I'm actually going to do here is stay in with my Sinistcha and try and get damage on either this if we outspeed, or whatever comes in if we don't. So, as you see, we're going to stay in and go for Matcha Gotcha. That is going to do a nice little chunk again to the Incineroar. We get a nominal amount back, we're looking at a much better position, and it is going to be that parting shot. So the over prediction, once again, looking for that initiative on my opponent's side, is going to see Sinistcha stay in and look at a really nice amount of health for doing so. And it's going to be Palafin that comes in for GameDex. It's an interesting one, but looking at what they had on the rest of the team, there's actually nothing on their team that really wants to take on this Sinistcha 1v1 outside of the Incineroar that had just parting shotted out. Now, we're pretty sure that this is not going to be a choice banded Palafin, which means Ice Punch with our investment will not kill. So if they're going to stay in with Palafin and try and get Ice Punch damage, I'm going to stay in and go for Matcha Gotcha, and that's what happens. Ice Punch comes in and does a good amount, but we do have that Citrus Berry, and that plus Matcha Gotcha is going to put us at a good range of health. Now we're at -1 special attack, we're not massively invested, this won't kill. Palafin is naturally quite bulky, but as you see, it does a very good amount of damage, and puts us back to the point where we will be able to take another Ice Punch. Now, they're going to withdraw the Palafin here, and they're going to make that safe play back into the Incineroar, which is fine, because as you may have seen, I don't know if I saw it on the screen there, we click Strength Sap, which is great. We now get this Incineroar to -1, and we get back to full health. Here's the thing, there's not a lot on my opponent's team that actively wants to go one-on-one with Sinistcha. Palafin will be beaten, Regieleki will be beaten, the Landorus may well be beaten, and the Phalanx isn't really bulky enough to do the job. It's only really this Incineroar that can do it, and with Strength Sap, there's even the chance that we can beat that 1v1, especially if it's packing knockoff as its main offensive coverage, since we've used our Citrus Berry. So Sinistcha's actually looking really quite good here. The only thing they can do is just sit in with Incineroar and try and attack, and this is the point where I'm going to go back into my Azumarill, making sure I can get that in without taking an Intimidate. So, knowing that Sinistcha looks like it might be quite important, that's the play I'm going to make back into my Azumarill as we see Flame Charge. Now that is going to do absolutely nothing to my Azumarill, and it doesn't matter that they're at +1 speed if they can't take a hit. Now, it should be noted that this is Terra Grass on Incineroar, but we've seen Knockoff, Flame Charge and Parting Shot. So we have to wonder if they're packing the Terra Grass. They don't look to be a very offensive build at all. And once again, we're put in this position where nothing on my opponent's team really wants to take a play rough. Now, the Incineroar, it turns out, is quicker than my Azumarill, which is a little bit unfortunate. They are just going to go for the Parting Shot and get on out of there. But like I say, they're not going to be switching Landorus in on a potential Water type hit, which means Palafin, which will die, Phalanx, which will die, and this guy, Regieleki, who won't die from this play rough, unfortunately. Because we're at -1, it's going to leave it at a smidgen of health, but because we were knocked off earlier, no longer are we choice banded, which means I can go for Aqua Jet, and even at -1, at that low range of health, that is going to pick off the Regieleki. And that's exactly what happens. Aqua Jet is going to come in, and that's going to take out the Regieleki, so another big quick threat down on my opponent's side of the field, which means outside of that Scarf Landorus, I now have the fastest thing going in the form of Killer Wattrel, which there aren't too many things that want to take a hit from it. But now, in comes the threat, and I'm taking Phalanx as a threat seriously. With one move, in the form of that no retreat, this thing can start doing nasty things, and I need consistent damage on it. Now, they have avoided terroring their Incineroar in front of my Azumarill on a number of occasions now, which leads me to believe this is what they want to terror. It is Terra Steel on that Phalanx. So I knowing that my Azumarill can be really useful, I'm going to stay in and make the play of clicking Superpower. And thankfully, we are going to get that play right. GameDex is going to Terra Steel on the Phalanx. Now, we're at -1 and we're no longer choice banded, and it seems very likely that a no retreat is coming my way, but even so, this Superpower is going to do big damage. As you'll see, there's the no retreat from Terra Steel Phalanx. That is, of course, going to raise all of its stats very slowly, but they can't switch out anymore. This is fine because we have clicked Superpower, and even though they're at +1 defense, and even though we're at -1 attack with no choice band, this Superpower is going to do just over half, which is super nice. However, I cannot stay in here. Azumarill might be needed to take at least one more hit from something, so I am going to have to make a switch out here. Thankfully, Phalanx doesn't have the greatest of natural physical attack stats, and because we were able to use Sinistcha fairly effectively with Strength Sap and using its item, I feel fairly safe going into it, fairly sure that I'll be able to take an Iron Head into a knockoff. Fingers crossed. Now, I was sorely tempted to pivot through Killer Wattrel here, scouting for the Iron Head. As it is, I'm going to go into my Sinistcha, and good thing I did, because there's Rock Slide, making the prediction of my Killer Wattrel to try and get that out of the way. However, it doesn't do nearly enough to my Sinistcha. And now that I've used my item, even at +1, a knockoff will never take out Sinistcha. Shadow Ball, even though it's at +1 special defense, has a chance to take it out from here, and if not, it's in Aqua Jet range. So, I'm going to stay in and go for Shadow Ball, as in comes the knockoff, which is going to crit. Of course it is. That was a shame. There was no chance that we'd ever be knocked out by that without the crit, but we did crit through negative stats and a screen earlier on Grimmsnarl, so all's fair, I guess. As it is, we don't get that extra chip damage onto the Phalanx, which means it's still out of Aqua Jet range, but it is not out of Superpower range, and we are no longer at -1 defense. It seems unlikely that they have the Poison Jab, otherwise I imagine they would have gone for it by now. We will take an Iron Head, and we will take a knockoff easily, and we'll certainly take a Rock Slide, and those are the moves I'm imagining that it has. Maybe Close Combat, we'll take that too. So what I'm going to do is just stay in and click Superpower once more, pretty sure that I should, fingers crossed, take whatever hit this thing is going through. And it's going to be Rock Slide that comes in. We do take that hit fairly handily, no flinch. We power through to get the Superpower off. Azumarill claims its 3rd KO of the game on debut, which is fantastic to see, and the very potent threat of Terra Steel No Retreat Phalanx is taken down. So now it's 4v3, and in comes the Scarf Landorus Therian, gonna get that Intimidate. Now, I have no business staying in here, but because Azumarill is just that threatening, in my mind, they have to go for Earthquake. They just have to. They have to get rid of this Azumarill because it is too much of a threat to this, and indeed the Incineroar, which can no longer Terra Grass. So, I'm going to save my Azumarill, I'm going to get on out of there, and go into my Killer Wattrel on what I'm assuming is going to have to be an Earthquake from this Landorus. However, GameDex is backed into a corner, and they're going to make plays. They go for Rock Slide, but because of that massive defense investment for Jet Punches, we are able to take that hit, barely. So Uni hanging on by a thread. Really good play on GameDex's part, but thankfully we are able to tank it. What this means is that we know they are locked into Rock Slide, and now that means that I have a very free switch into my Iron Crown. So, gonna get out of there with my Killer Wattrel. We switch out first, so we know that they've stayed in and gone for that Rock Slide because they are scarfed. Iron Crown gonna hit the field, Rock Slide is gonna come in and do precious little damage. Now, I know full well that they have to switch out of here because if they stay in, we win this 1v1. So they have to go into either the Palafin, which seems unlikely because it's at low health, or the Incineroar, which seems much more likely because it seems to be quite specially bulky. That in mind, we're in this position where I know Landorus is going to switch out, so I can go for a coverage move. I do consider Calm Mind, but in the end, what I want is big damage on what I'm hoping is going to be an incoming Incineroar. And my best play is not to go for Volt Switch, because what am I going to go into? My best play is to go for Focus Blast and try and nail it with a 2-hit KO. And that's what's going to happen. Landorus is going to get on out of there. They need to maintain it for later on. And in is going to come the Incineroar, which is going to be really useful damage that I can get onto this with the Focus Blast. But Focus Blast does what it does best, and we are going to unfortunately miss. That's a shame. That could have been really valuable damage onto Incineroar. Even if it was like 50%, it would have been great. Now I want to try and maintain my Iron Crown, especially that Sugar Berry, which I might need against the Landorus. So I'm just going to click Volt Switch here, get on out of there as they assumedly stay in, but they don't. GameDex is going to make a wonderful scouting play here, and they're going to go hard back into Landorus to take the Volt Switch. Really good play on GameDex's part. They're backed into a corner, but they're playing it very well indeed to try and get around my threats. However, what I know that they don't know is that my Sugar Berry means I'm out of range of Adamant Earthquake. So what I am going to do here is just stay in and click Tachyon Cutter, and at least try and get meaningful damage onto Landorus to put it in range of even like a -1 Aqua Jet from Azumarill. I was just checking there to make sure that I had a Sugar Berry, because I was going to run Cobra at one point, but we have gone Sugar, we're out of range, and we're going to click Tachyon Cutter. But GameDex is one step ahead. They're going to go for the U-turn. That's going to do big adamant damage, and crucially, that puts us in range of Landorus's Earthquake, even with the Sugar Berry, which is very unfortunate. Back in is going to come the Incineroar. All these Intimidates don't matter to Iron Crown, but this Tachyon Cutter is going to do precious little damage to the Incineroar. Now, I know the time in range of that Earthquake. I know the time in range of the Jet Punch. At this point, the only value that I gain from Iron Crown is getting damage onto this Incineroar with Focus Blast. So, at the risk of a knockoff taking me out, I'm going to stay in, and I'm going to click Focus Blast again and try and get some damage. And this time, we do hit. Focus Blast is going to land and nail this Incineroar. Unfortunately, with the leftovers, it's going to survive, but they go for Earthquake, and we have the Sugar Berry. Now, we may have been in range of Landorus's Earthquake, but the Sugar Berry is going to let us live the Incineroars. That gives Iron Crown another chance to get a hit off. And at this point, the Incineroar is in range of Tachyon Cutter. So I'm going to go for it. If they want to get cute and switch into Landorus, this is going to do big damage to it. And that is exactly what happens. Incineroar is going to switch out, presumably to maintain a bit of Intimidate shuffling. In comes the Landorus, which would have taken the Focus Blast easily, but we're going to go for Tachyon Cutter as some police go past my house, and that's going to take the Landorus into very low range of health as well. Now, at this point, there's no sense to be saving Iron Crown. I am just going to stay in and click Tachyon once again, just in case they want to pull some kind of double somewhere. But there's no sense to be saving Iron Crown. It's not doing anything anymore to this Landorus. The Landorus is going to go for Stealth Rock. Scarf Rock's coming in there, which, if my Kilowatt Rule wasn't Boots, then that would be a real problem for me. But as it is, we are Boots, and that Tachyon Cutter is going to take out the Landorus, which is huge. That Scarfer is now gone, but we still have the Palafin left. And I think what they might have been trying to do was get those rocks up to put stuff in range. Now, at this point, it is 4v2, and the match is looking like it could be sewn up, but we are not going to be doing anything stupid. The Jet Punch is fairly obvious, and I could go into Haxorus and tank that and go for a first impression, but I don't have to risk it, because if, as they have been doing this entire game, GameDex makes a play and goes for Ice Punch here on that predicted switch for me to save differential, I could be throwing the game away entirely. Because I could take a massive hit from Ice Punch, which I will live, but not well, and at that point, they can then go into Incineroar to sack it to the first impression, bring back in Palafin, and start Jet Punching away. So what I'm going to do here is play it as safe as possible. I am just going to stay in with my Iron Crown and click Volt Switch, just in case they want to bulk up or something, but it is going to be the Jet Punch. It was a fairly obvious play, but it was not a risk I felt I had to take at this point, because now, in the end game, I should, fingers crossed, be able to clean up with Haxorus. So, Haxorus is going to hit the field for the first time. We're going to take the rocks, but we know that this thing is not choice banded. That's crucial. That means that an Ice Punch will not be KOing us. I am going to go for Dragon Claw here. I don't know why I didn't go for First Impression. It could get risky, because if they go for Ice Punch, Outspeed, and Crit, then we are in a huge world of pain. But thankfully, they do not get that crit. We're going to go for Dragon Claw. That is going to take out the Palafin. Down it goes, and now all GameDex has left is going to be the Incineroar at very low health, which we know we should be outspeeding. In is going to come that Incineroar. It's going to get the Intimidate, but at that range of health, it just isn't going to matter. And in comes the final Dragon Claw. Haxorus going to clean up the game with a couple of KOs. Down goes the Incineroar. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be the game. So, yeah, great game to GameDex. We take a 3-0 win, but it felt a lot closer than that. They played that one incredibly well, I have to say. Absolutely hats off to GameDex for the way they had a plan they put into action, you know, cycling me through that initiative vortex that I had a lot of trouble breaking out of and had to play a little bit ballsy to do so. We did manage to in the end, and then we had another threat in that GameDex played around incredibly well as well, scouting out my Iron Crown set and trying to negate the damage it can do when their back was against the wall. Thankfully, we are able to get on track with a win, and it's a useful win. That puts us at 1-1 with a -1 differential, but it's very early in the season. It doesn't get any easier though. Next week we are going to be taking on Iron Boffin, which is a match I'm super looking forward to. Haven't played him in a little bit, so only remains to be seen how that one goes. In the meantime, remember, links down in the description to GameDex. Make sure you go and check them out along with everyone else. I don't know whether this is GameDex's first singles draft league, but certainly I know they are more of a doubles player than singles, so it's really cool to see them take part in here. I was genuine pleasure to get to play against you, GameDex. So keep an eye on them, make sure you go and sub and check out the rest of their games this season along with everybody else. But I'm going to get out of here, I've rambled for far too long, so my final thank you to you all for watching, and I guess with that, I will see you next time. Laters.